Welcome to Women at Halftime podcast, but not just for women, for you men too. If you're at mid-career or the halftime of life, our inspirational topics are not only fun, but also meant to help you maximize and write your next chapter. Right here with me, Deborah Johnson. Well, hello, everyone. I'm here with Greg today. We are on Together once a month. And we have a lot to say, just that we've been together. We've been married for a long time. And we are covering really kind of an interesting topic I wanted to cover together today. What we would like a note to our younger selves. And we see a lot of these articles and, what I would do, and, to my younger self. And they're fairly generic. But we're going to apply to our lives. Our little note to our younger selves. And we are at a stage now where we have grown kids and they are launched officially, very exciting. But, we're kind of looking back and with a few thoughts. And before we really get going, I want to make sure that you are getting the article that'll go with this, because I will put some links in there. goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Comes out every week. We don't spam you. We don't give you a lot of things that are coming at you, but the article comes every week. Also, the podcast will come, so you will make sure that you keep up with every episode and with all of our new things. Our HeroMountainSummit.com. If you go there, you will see our main course. I only launch that twice a year for individuals, and it's also available now for companies. So let's launch right into this. And Greg, thanks again for being here with me today.
Good to see all of you.
Yes. And I want you to kind of start with one of the things we've talked about this briefly, and we're just basically going to have a conversation. I hope you relate to a lot of things that we are saying. And if you are not to our stage yet, it does not matter. Just to really be able to say there's some wisdom in this. And as you are living your life, whether you have young kids, whether you are just starting out, we hope that we can actually impart a little bit of wisdom. So why don't you kind of cover one of those things that you thought of?
All right. Well, one of the first ones is I'd ask myself the question, am I working merely to make money, or am I trying to become good at something? Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is when you first get started in a career, obviously you need to make money, and you're just struggling to make ends meet. And so this can feel like a deep question. But what I noticed is after, we'd been at work 5-10 years, kind of what industry started doing was trying to convince you that you're more than your job, that you should be exploring, feeling good about yourself and giving yourself positive props and that kind of stuff. And the longer I've thought about it, and I've thought about it for a long time now, the reality is we get a lot of validation or not based on how good of a job we do. And I think God designed us to contribute in a positive way to society. And if all you're doing is working for yourself, all you're doing is working for money, you clock in, you clock out, and then, you're disgruntled about your job, you're going to kind of have an average life. What I found is, and what I would tell my younger self, is find something that you can dig into and then become good at it. If you're a tradesman, let's say plumber, become a great plumber. Enjoy being good at it. Watch YouTube videos and see what other people are doing. Don't be satisfied with just going out, knocking out a few jobs, collecting a check, go home, and try to squeeze as much life as you can out of the time, after 6 o'clock when you get home. Why not squeeze a lot of life out of the 8 to 5 part of your life? And you can do that by becoming better and better and better at your job. I mean, if you think about it, if you start at 25 in a trade or, in a profession, after you put in 20 years, you should be at the top of your field. you should have experienced and read and learned enough that you can anticipate a lot of problems, provide way more value than somebody who's 20 years younger than you. And all in all, feel like you're on top of your game. And that feeling of feeling like you're on top of your game is what brings rewarding aspect to life.
Great point. And we were talking about a couple of the sources as well. And a couple of those books will be in the article. So So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport.
That was a great book. Become so good they can't ignore you.
Right.
Instead of trying to actualize yourself or, bounce from job to job to job to job, hoping you find the right job. Instead, find a job and become the best at that job, and then they can't ignore you.
Yeah.
And then the other book we talked about was the Talent Code, which in essence says after 3,000 hours of practice, you become proficient. Yes. After 10,000 hours, you become an expert.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. And I have written before about this, and it may take longer than 10,000 hours. They say 10,000.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you stop at 10,000.
No, if you were going to be an expert concert pianist, it takes more. But it depends on what you are doing and how focused you are and how much concentration you have as well. So there's a lot to that, but it's possible.
And I think, and there's a lot more reward out of life than settling for being proficient at something.
Yes, I agree.
The closer you get to being an expert, the more rewarding your profession is.
Yes, I agree with that. Totally agree with that. So hopefully that helps many of you. I'm going to cover just enjoy the seasons of life. And that could be part of your work that you're doing. But for me, there were times in my life that I was feeling so driven, and we were raising our kids and, having those three boys, they're 4 years apart, and there is a bundle of energy. And because they're grown right now, and I'm looking back and I'm looking at these boys and thinking, I hope I enjoyed every minute when you were a baby. Makes me tear up just thinking about it. We have our third getting married right now. So it's like these little guys, they're not going to stay little. And I wish I had stopped more just to relish in that time of motherhood, because I tend to be very driven, and it's just my personality. I love my work, and I'm just driven and just getting things done and and just enjoying those little guys and laughing with them. Now I remember the times that we turned on, what was the movie that was out? Footloose. We had an LP record of that, like going back. This is probably valuable now. I put that on in the living room, and we just danced. All of us just crazy danced all together. I wish we had done that more. There are times I just wish we could just have and laughed more, and I wasn't quite so stressed. So I think my message to my younger self was just relax a little and just enjoy the seasons.
But to be fair, she did not miss all of their growing up.
No.
She did take some time to enjoy.
I did, and we had a very good time. We really did have a good time. But anyway, when you're looking back, my parents always had said, "Oh, the time moves fast." And I'm thinking, no, it doesn't feel like it's moving very fast.
We spent a day up at the local mountains over the weekend near where we used to take the kids up.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee Deb got out in snow and threw snowballs and rode on sleds. And we did enjoy those boys quite a bit.
Yeah, I went right down with them. I was going to make sure that.
I think the spinoff of that, a second one that I'd think of is when you first have kids, ask yourself, am I going to be responsible for educating them, or am I going to let the school do it? Yes. And by that, what I mean is, I was stunned last week. Somebody in our school district said that the most of our kids from the high school now are graduating at an 8th grade reading level or less. Wow. And I'm thinking, that's horrible for the kids, but like, where are the parents? Yeah. And, our kids have been in high school a long time. So it's not the same high school. It's the high school they went to, but it's not the same high school.
Right.
And I think now we're kind of, helping raise our grandkids and watching them grow in education and those kinds of things. And I think if I was going to do it over again, I'd make sure that I was responsible. I'd probably self-assess a little bit, like say, okay, if they're in third grade, how much math should they know? And create my own little test. What should they be able to read, and make sure that they were able to read it. The hardest test they took should have been from me, making sure that they were keeping up. And you can dole out some of the everyday work to the school, but the ultimate responsibility for how they're doing is, I think, should be on us. And reading is the gateway to the world,
right?
And if you shut that door on a high school student, it's a tragedy. And if the door's open, and they're reading at 11th or 12th grade level when they graduate, that door is open. Their whole adult life can be completely different. And so I think that's one of the questions I'd reinforce. That's
a wonderful one. And we were a strong believer in just, getting books for the kids. I mean, that was one of our little trips. I'd wheel them to the library. We'd go and just check out everything we could and get them reading. And I was thrilled to see our granddaughters even writing, practicing their cursive and everything with, first grade, fourth grade. And they're just, you want to make sure they've got a lot of those basics. And if the school's not doing the job, just step in and as a parent, and you can supplement as the parent, or just have a really big say about.
I think as parents, we know what adult life requors. So we need to make sure that our kids are ready for adult life.
Right.
And God gave that job to you and me. You didn't give it to the school. School's just there as a part-time assistant.
Right. I really agree with that. So, and it doesn't take tons of time.
Right. It takes staying on top of it a little bit.
It does. It takes, and knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's important. Yeah. You got to know what they're doing, and you got to be involved. So when there's all of these messages like they don't want parents involved, I would fight with that with everything I had. No. You are the parent. God has given you that responsibility. I am the mom. I have carried that little baby for long, or adopted, if you've adopted, or whatever. But you have been caring for that child, and that's your responsibility. And don't shirk that off, and don't give it away completely. You want to make sure all of that is going on, that you have a say. Well, for me, there was another one, was relationships, and I tend to be. By nature, I figured this out a little later in life, that I was more of an introvert instead of extrovert, because I tend to just focus and do my work. And I'm an intentional extrovert because I've been an entertainer. But following up on relationships, and sure, we send out our, holiday Christmas cards every year, and we do all of that. But there are some relationships I wish I had nurtured a little bit more and kept up with. And got together. It gets a lot harder than if you haven't kept those relationships up. And some of them you can fall right back in. And it's hard with time. With your kids when they get older, it's, you have different relationship circles. But there are certain relationships that are worth keeping. And so I wish at least I had valued those a little bit more, to have some sort of system in place to call them regularly, to make sure I'm touching base. And now it's a lot easier. We used to not have cell phones even, and, we'd have our dial-up phones, but now, it's a lot easier. So just keeping up with that, and social media helps with that a little bit. But for me, I feel like there were some relationships, and I'm trying to do this a little bit more with some of my current relationships now, of just to follow up and follow through, because life's busy. I will always tend to be busy because I'm so project driven, but relationships are so important. And also relationships with our kids. We are now prioritizing some of our travel every single year, visiting our kids, making sure we spend time with them. We, of course, this weekend that we got to spend time too with one of our sons that was working up in the mountains as a fireman at that station, and that's very valuable. Take the time to do this. Don't ignore these moments that we have. So, yeah. So, okay, you got another one, and
yeah, I think one more critical one. I want you to think about this is. When you first get started, ask yourself, am I going to be a consumer or an investor?
Wow.
And that will set the stage for the rest of your adult financial life. Most people, and I wrote an article about this 20 years ago, most kids, when they graduate from college, get their first full-time job. They get a paycheck, regular paycheck finally coming in. They buy too much house and they buy too much car. And by that, I don't mean they necessarily buy their house, but they rent a house that's, $500 to $1,000 more than they need. They buy a car that's $300 to $500 a month more than they need. And between the two, if you took that $1,000 a month and saved it, you could save $12,000 a year. If you did that for a couple of years, what you'd find is you'd get a couple of raises. You could continue to save $1,000 a month. And I think what I titled that article is "What to Do with Your First $100,000." Because once you get $100,000, you can begin to become an investor. You can, depending on what part of the country you live in, you could put money down on a rental house and, have it rented and be making $300 to $500 a month for the rest of your life, supplemental income. And, you do that twice and suddenly you've got $600 to $1,000 a month of income coming in. Now, you've had 3, 4, 5 raises. You're making way more money than you possibly ever thought you would make in college. But if you've got the habit of saving $1,000 a month, if you've now got $1,000 a month of rental income coming in, and you got the prospect of future increases in wages, now you can buy a house because those rentals are always going to pay, and you'll have rentals supplementing the mortgage payment on the house you want to move into, and the habit of living on less than you make, having additional income other than your wages, and that will last forever, and waiting until you're well into your career before you buy your first house sets you up for life. And it literally takes 5 years, to do it. Whereas most people are consumers. They get a job and finally they can buy that decked out truck that they always wanted. They rent a place that's more than they need. With a place that's more than you need, you get furniture that matches it. And instead of saving $1,000 a month, what you're doing is adding $300 to $500 a month of credit card debt. You're going the exact opposite direction. And if you think about it, right when you get out of college is when you're used to living on little. And if you just continue that and get used to living on less, you can set yourself up for life, and it's really not hard. But once you get into debt, unless somehow you land that Hollywood gig that you were always hoping for, the chances of digging out of that hole are almost impossible. And so most of our nation's in debt, and it's all a bunch of little choices. It's not big choices. Wow. Great little book called A Millionaire Next Door. It probably came out 20 years ago. But if you read it, a lot of what I'm talking about here is going to be echoed in that book.
Right. I'll put some of those links too in the article. So make sure you get it. goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. What a great point. I mean, it's just, it's so hard to wait for some of these, especially, starting out and, yeah, but be prudent with that. And and we waited a little bit. I mean, interest rates were skyrocketing when we first got married, horrible. And both of us I had finished graduate work and you had finished a professional baseball career. And we were, kind of at that point. But we were able to get into something at least with a lower interest that was a family that ended up carrying paper and it was almost cheaper than renting for us. So that was a good choice, but it was a couple of years before we ended up doing that. So anyway, to wait with that and you don't need those new cars until you're able to be a little more established. So I'll try to find that article. I don't know if that's going to show up anywhere, but it's great principles anyway. Well, one last little thing and hopefully this won't be confusing to anyone, but it will be enlightening to some of you, is that I wish that I had had a little more career counseling when I was graduating college. And sometimes you go back to school and go back to college because, I didn't want to teach full time. I had contracts offered to me to teach full time. I'd already done that in the school system for a couple of years. And that's not what I wanted to do. The classroom wasn't what I wanted to do. Now, back then, we did not have the internet. Okay. I know that sounds like we are ancient right now. So there was no online teaching. There was no, anything like that. But that teaching gene has always been within me. And that's why the speaking was such an easy expansion of my career. Even the writing books is because I'm a teacher at heart. I'm an instructor at heart, entertainer as well. That's adding on. But there's that instructor part of me. And just to pursue maybe some of the other options, even at that time, because you could do more seminars at that time, that would have been fulfilling. I mean, I've taught college classrooms. That still wasn't a joy to me because it was, and not everything has to be a joy. Okay. From our Marie Kondo, everything, it should be. No, she doesn't profess everything to be a joy anyway, especially with our careers. But the principle, I think, is very applicable in where we go and answer that what's next. What do we like about this? And I felt like, I'm just supposed to get that degree and these opportunities. Sometimes you just fall into these things. It's really the way you do it. And in fact, with all of my teaching gigs that I ended up going, even at the university, even teaching there, it was almost like it was just a relationship falling into that. But discovering what did I really enjoy about it? What would I like to expand to do and just to make that work? So, and I didn't feel like I had enough education and enough options there. I think there are online courses and there are a lot of other things available now. So for those of you who are at that point thinking, I'm doing this, but there's something about it. I just don't want to do it. Just to be able to say, take a step back and think through some of the basic things. And this is part of the Hero Mountain Summit too. When I talk about our core common denominator, what do you love about it? Figuring out what you really love. Is there a nugget that you love about it? What will that apply to? And I wish I had had some of that advice and some of that time to be able to take a step back and think through that, to really enjoy even some of the other jobs that I did even more. And I just did the jobs. I did a good job and I got great reviews on all of those. But am I really, pursuing this even more and not just for me, just to be able to, it needs to be all about the people that we have in our groups and our classrooms and our audiences and, a lot more focus there in feeling like I'm really using everything that I had and everything that I loved as well. So, boy, we covered a lot today. So I think, this wasn't just your standard list to go down. I could just do some sort of standard, research. Okay, what are the things you'd ask for? We wanted to make this very, very personal for our lives because we've raised our family. We've both worked all the way through. You've started a business. You've been a professional. Both of us have been professional entertainers pretty much because you've been in sports. I've been in music. But there's these little things that we want to look back as raising our family. And it's a good example for me right now is I want to enjoy the time with our kids at the stage they're at now and our grandkids at the stage they're at now, and not to miss out on these little moments of doing, being together with them. So anything else that you want to add on
Nope,
that?
that was good.
Yeah, it's just, I hope it really encourages many of you of, no matter where you are, whether you are at the younger stage, if you are listening to this, we have people all ages, I think. And then if you're at that mid-career at the, wondering what's next or whatever, or you could be at a later stage. And some people are saying, well, I'm sure I'm in the last third, or I'm in the last. It doesn't matter, whatever stage. There's always things that we can look at and keep that lifelong learning and the growing. And as we enjoy life, it's a gift. It truly is a gift. So make sure you connect with me. Look up HeroMountainSummit.com for that full-on course. You can start it free. All of our online courses, you can start free. Get on our newsletter because you'll get all the information about it as well. Again, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Deborah Johnson speaker, DJ Works music. There's links everywhere. So everybody loves the music too. So but make sure that you connect, and we will be on together again next month. And so again, thank you for being with me here today. Sure. It's just always
good to see everybody.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you. And so we will just say goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.